The world of fashion is often overlooked in the daily conversation around macroeconomics, budgets, inflation, interest rates, stocks, bonds, currencies, and so on. And I'm guilty of that, am I? So let's make some amends today on the show as we bring on Patricia Nsan, who is the creative director at MMkamba. Patricia is talking making Nigeria fashion business here on Business Morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for coming. Very interesting to see the world of fashion. Fashion is big business, and I'm sure really many of us sometimes just get carried away with budgets and economic terminologies, big grammar, as the folks on the street will call it. So this is one interesting thing. You work, you live in Nigeria, and for everybody, the word on the street was about recession. And so my question is, do you folks in the fashion business, are you affected by this? How have you been coping?
Definitely. Everyone has been affected by the recession in Nigeria. But then we've put together structures that are helping us survive.
They're helping you survive. You've been in business before the recession of 2016, haven't you?
Yes. We've been on for about a year.
Oh,
MMkamba is official for a year. But prior to that, I've been in the fashion industry and I know how it goes.
You know how it goes. So how does it go in there? I've been worried. Let's start from the last about the Nigerian brands. I've seen fashion, and when we talk about making Nigerian fashion, clothing, as you call it, come and go since the 80s and 90s and the millennium around the 2000s. And now we keep seeing new ones like yours coming up and say, look, we need to do making Nigeria. We used to use African fabric, Nigerian fabric. We need to do designs that will help us also be competitive with international brands.
Okay. Yes, actually, Nigerian brands are evolving. Nigerian brands are coming up, and although some brands don't last because of some reasons, which we're going to talk about, there are other brands that have been there for about over 10 years and are still thriving and are at par with international trends, with international brands, you know. So yeah.
But why? What makes Nigerian brands? What makes the mortality rate so high? Why do they die so quickly? Because sometimes it's not because the owners or the founders die, but the business just die.
Yes, that's because there are a lot of structures that need to be in place for any company, any brand to grow. So some brands that die, maybe they didn't look into their structures. So a structure of a brand is very key. You have to have proper structures in place. It's not just about designing pieces. So if you're a designer, you have to work with a team of people that are very good at what they do. You have to have a good marketing plan. You have to have a good advertising plan. You have to have all your structures in place for your brand to survive. You know, there are a lot of things to look into as well. Not just structures, you have to look at, you know, funding. What is the funding like, you know?
Money is important.
Yes.
I'm talking about advertising. I haven't seen MMkamba's advertisement. MMkamba, if you're doing it, I need to see it here.
Yes, definitely.
I need to see it on channels.
Definitely.
So don't forget, just write it down somewhere that we need to have your. But let's talk about funding. Funding is very important, and it looks like every small business in Nigeria, folks believe that the big boys, the Dangotes, the Lafarge, the rest of them, were the ones who make the big money. They can go into a bank, get money out at maybe low interest rate. But when it comes to folks like you who startups, as it were, in fashion, and so banks don't seem to be don't smile as much when you walk into the. So have you ever walked into a banking hall and talked to your branch manager and said, look, I need some loans?
Well, personally, I have not, but I know brands and I know some other SMEs who have approached banks and they are not so friendly. They don't have friendly loan rates. So I think if we're looking at lasting brands in Nigeria, the government should look at providing more accessible fundings by providing friendly loan rates for SMEs. Although we have some bodies who would have been put in place that are currently doing that, like the Bank of Industry, who 2 years back actually provided 1 billion naira to the fashion sector, you know. But then there are still a lot of little things they need to do.
You didn't get part of that 1 billion naira,
no,
did you?
No, I'm yet to.
Why?
Well,
I thought that's why you were here.
Well, I haven't approached them yet.
For part of the 1 billion?
Yes, but then...
because that money could dry up My advice is that you go quickly. Well, that's not an editorial, but if you want to approach the Bank of Industry for part of that 1 billion that the government says we want to support the fashion industry, what will you be using? How much will you be asking for? And what will you be using that money for? Well,
as I read, they have a particular percentage that can go to each SME. So you have about 5 million naira for each, each brand. So you can actually approach, and then they have everything structured. So even apart from structured brands, you have people who, like startups, people who are just very skilled, NYSC, corporates can actually approach them, and they have a specific percentage for everyone. So
if you get 5 million naira, what will you be investing in? You want to buy more machines? You want to put up some advertisements? You
set up structures. The structure has to be in place. So from production hubs to the technical part of it, to the advertising part, everything is going to be in that plan.
Oh, really? Yeah. So what can be done to, Nigerian brands are said to be more expensive. Everybody says producing in Nigeria is really expensive. Is it all about money or about electricity, or you have workers that charge you so much for working for you?
Okay, so you see, producing in Nigeria is really high. Like the high cost of production is, outrageous. So when you're comparing Nigerian brands and as opposed to shopping abroad and buying something from abroad, it's usually really high. But then our production cost is really high. You have to look at paying the tailors. To have good skilled tailors that can actually provide finished goods for you that are acceptable by your clients and your consumers, you have to pay. You have to really pay.
And then hold on a second. Okay. I'll stop it there, because I'm a little bit like the man on the street. Okay. Folks go to the market and they buy a piece of clothing for, say, 5 yards for 1,000 naira. Very low level. But again, you take it to a tailor and who says, I'm going to pay 3,000 to sew that piece of dress. And it's very annoying to people. Why can't you just pick 500 naira? Why should you pay a tailor just 3,500 to sew a piece of clothing? And because it's just 5 yards for about 300 naira per yard.
Okay, so now you want to consider the tailor's electricity. Does he have stable electric power supply? Because he has to run on diesel. So if he's producing, for instance, the suit you're wearing, as opposed to you shopping Giorgio Armani, they have stable power supply. They produce maybe in China, and the production rate there is, their labor, everything is very conducive. So you're looking at it and looking at producing in Nigeria. Okay, for instance, he's going to buy the fabric. Importing fabric to Nigeria, the exchange rate, if you have a preference to your fabric and you say, okay, I want it to be more of cotton and all of that, and then he has to order from China. So the exchange rate from getting the fabric, first of all, to Nigeria, and then producing, which is very draining. He has to buy fuel, he has to, there's a lot of instability, and then the pressure on him to, create these pieces with even backward machines, and so there's a lot of things to be put in place. So when you're saying a Nigerian brand, this thing is really, there's so much work that has been put into it, as opposed to brands that have created mass in a very conducive environment. So.